G'day, IB Psychologists. In this video, we're going to look at how to explain your materials and the 3 materials specifically that you must explain. It's a pretty common thing that students get wrong, so I just want to give you a couple of quick tips. 3 materials are your stimulus, your measurement, and your informed consent. They're the most important things to explain, but in my experience marking IB IAs, it's really common that these are overlooked, and they're often other things that are slightly less relevant are explained, or these are just listed. So here's how you're going to do it. The key to remember is the what, how, why. In another video, I explained the state, describe, explain. Okay, it's the same way of saying it, right? You say, what did you do? How did you do it? And why did you do it? All right, so think of Simon Sinek, if you know him. This is about marketing. This is based on marketing, but we can apply the same principles to your exploration. Think what, how, why. So the why, when you have to explain why you did something, can come under 3 reasons. Validity, right? So you did it to increase your internal validity. You can think of practicality, right? It just in terms of practical terms, it was simple. Or ethicality. An example, your design. You'll choose a design because it controls for a particular extraneous variable. That's an issue of validity. You might have chosen an opportunity sample because it's simply the most convenient. That's practicality. You'd give informed consent forms in your debrief, and you explain because that's making your study ethical. So let's break down now the 3 materials that you have to explain. The first thing is the stimulus. And what do I mean by that? Well, you probably presented something to your participants, right? There's some sort of stimulus that you've exposed them to in some way to help you manipulate your independent variable. And so what was it, right? So sometimes like Glanzer and Kunitz, so it might be a word list, or it's a video like in Loftus and Palmer, reading or listening to some kind of passage in Bransford and Johnson, or in other memory studies. Maybe it was images like the facial feedback hypothesis, music with the Mozart effect, something else, right? But I'm sure, I can't think of any studies where you haven't presented your participants with some kind of stimulus. So explain it. It's really important, and it's amazing how often students forget to do this. So please state, what did you do? And then the how and the why. Okay, how did you create it? And then why did you make those choices? So think about like what kind of video did you choose and why? So if you did the Loftus and Palmer, okay, and I've got another video where I explain specific tips about that. Maybe if you had to make a word list, what kind of words did you choose and why? What kind of reading passage? What kind of music? What type of images? What type of questions did you ask? For example, in the anchoring effect. Okay, so this is where the description comes in. Okay, so what kinds of words, describing generally how it was done, and also how did you create it, and most importantly, why? Okay, so why did you make those choices? That's how you explain your stimulus. Okay, number 2, the measurement. So you've exposed your participants to some kind of stimulus, and then you have to measure your dependent variable somehow. How did you do it? All right, so again, think of the what, how, why. Did you do a test, like a reading comprehension test or a listening test, maybe a quiz? You might have given the questionnaire, like in the anchoring effect or Loftus and Palmer, or some kind of survey, right, where they have to fill out a bunch of results. What did you use to measure your dependent variable? And so think about carefully, how did you create it? Did you just use the original from the study? And that's fine, but state that, okay? And then explain why you use the original. Again, that could be an issue of practicality. Well, it was there, it's a useful resource, you didn't have to do it again. And then, so, how and why. So for the word list, right, again, so what type of words did you choose? And how did you come up with that list? How did you find the video, or how did you create the video? How did you select your music? Sorry. I'm going back to the stimulus here. Your questionnaire, right? How did you select your questions? Right, you just have to explain your choices here. All right, so number 2 is the measurement. Okay, number 3, the final one then is really important, is the informed consent. And this is important for a couple of reasons. And number 1, even though it doesn't say it anywhere in the rubric, you have to make it clear that you followed ethical guidelines. And so this helps solidify that. You state your informed consent, and that way we know that your study was ethical, and you include a blank copy of the informed consent form in your appendices. So so how do you explain it? What are you going to describe here? Well, what information did you include in the informed consent? And what information did you leave out? Now, some people make the mistake of thinking that leaving out information is the same thing as deception. It's not, right? It's just withholding information is not deception. It's perfectly fine and ethical to not give all the details of your study to your participants. It could completely ruin your experiment. So you might have, and you probably did, withhold some information from your participants. So what did you not include in there? But of course you had to include some stuff, otherwise it's not informed consent, it's blind consent, right? And so that is what you can explain. Now this sounds quite complicated, but hopefully you can do this in maybe 2 or 3 or 4 sentences. It doesn't have to be that much. So what information did you include, what information did you leave out, and why? Okay, and so think just about what type of information, if you revealed, would give away the aim of your experiment and maybe jeopardize your results. This is a blank copy of the informed consent form that we have in our teacher support pack. So students kind of fill this out and free to use it how they wish. So this is what I recommend here to make sure your informed consent form is ethical. And so it might be the second paragraph here where you're going to explain what did you include and what did you leave out. Okay, again, if you're interested, that's in the IA teacher support pack. So recapping, the 3 steps: what did you do, how did you do it, and why? And the 3 things you should explain are the stimulus, the measurement, and the informed consent. All right. So when you think about what to explain, now it's really common, and look at your first draft, that did you really explain these 3 things? Students tend to focus on things like projectors, pens, papers, desks, the classroom, like that when they think materials, that's what they think. And they overlook these 3 really important aspects. Now, should you explain these things? Well, I don't think so. I think you should definitely list them if you like, right? You needed a projector, you needed whatever you had, the classroom, pens, papers, desks. I would only explain it if there's something unique or a particular relevance to your experiment. So if you're doing that one with the schema, I've never had my students do it. When they have the room and they completely change it, the schema consistent, inconsistent. Is that Hamilton and Gifford? The name escapes me. I should really know it. Anyway, I never let my students do it. But anyway, so if you're doing that, right, you might then describe the room. I guess that would, for me, would come under the stimulus. Or maybe there could be something about the physical classroom that it, where there's lots of light, or it controls for like sound. It's really soundproof. Something that then, if there's something particular about it, then you would explain it. Otherwise, if it's just generic, then if it doesn't, if any old classroom or pen, paper, desks or whatever would do, don't worry. Okay, I hope that was helpful. Pretty simple, straightforward, but it's just one more thing. Remember, the key to success in the IA is attention to detail, and I'm hoping that by creating these videos, it's going to allow you to just focus on those important details, and you can just do it step by step. If you need more help, if you're a teacher watching this, we have the ebook and teacher support pack bundle. This takes you through the whole IA process step by step. This is all digital, so that's available on our store, link in the description. And you've got all the blog channel. I know if you're watching this, you're probably already aware of all these things. So anyway, thank you. And again, I hope that was helpful. Now, also post a question if you're doing a study where you can't think of what the stimulus is and you can't think of what your measuring device is and you're completely stumped of those 2 things, what to explain. Pop a question and let's see if we can help you out. Thanks.